External Affairs Minister Subramaniam Jaishankar is in Moscow as a part of a 3-day visit as India seeks to strengthen its ties with Russia amidst the strain in the New Delhi-US partnership. Jaishankar's visit to Moscow comes days after Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi was in India for a 3-day visit as well. India has sought to deepen its partnership with Russia, even as the US continues to threaten India with tariffs for its ongoing purchases of Russian oil. On Wednesday, the two sides finalized the terms of reference for the free trade agreement between New Delhi and the Eurasian Economic Union, or the EAEU, as both countries seek to grow trade to $100 billion by 2030. The positive momentum in the India-Eurasian Economic Union Free Trade Agreement comes even as New Delhi's negotiations for a bilateral trade deal with the US continues to flounder. New Delhi's decision to move forward with negotiations with the Russian-led single market comes around the same time the political ties between India and the US have hit a rough patch. US President Donald Trump has criticized India's continued purchase of Russian oil and imposed an additional tariff of 25% as a penalty on New Delhi, which is set to come into force at the end of this month. The additional tariff will see India's total levies to touch 50%, amongst the highest for any trade partner of the United States of America. India's primary economic partner in the Eurasian Economic Union is Russia. Last year, trade between the two countries in goods crossed $60 billion, primarily due to New Delhi's purchase of Russian oil, which was around $56 billion. Russia has grown to become the fourth largest trading partner with India in the last 3 years, following the start of the war with Ukraine. Trade with Russia grew considerably after the G7 member states introduced a price cap on the sale of Russian oil in 2022, ensuring that its sale price would be below $60 a barrel. Former American envoy to India, Eric Garcetti, had acknowledged that the price cap was introduced keeping India in mind. Thanks to the price cap, India's purchase of Russian oil increased considerably, replacing New Delhi's traditional oil suppliers from West Asia. In the last financial year, that is 2024 to 2025, India also exported roughly $67 billion worth of petroleum products to the world, with the Netherlands accounting for roughly $13 billion worth of exports alone. The Trump administration has criticized this aspect, asserting that India has been profiteering from the Russia-Ukraine war. New Delhi rejected these claims earlier this month, pointing out that both the US and the European Union continue to trade with Moscow despite the almost 4-year-long war. While in Moscow, Jaishankar also hit out at the US's claim of war profiteering from Russian oil. Jaishankar pointed out that India has not become the largest purchaser of Russian oil, that is China. It is not the largest purchaser of LNG from Russia, nor has its trade surged the highest with Russia, claiming that he's perplexed by the American claims of war profiteering. Russian President Vladimir Putin has spoken with Prime Minister Narendra Modi twice in the last week, updating him of the situation on the front lines in Ukraine, as well as the outcomes of the summit that was held in Alaska with Trump, and this happened on the 15th of August. The last time Prime Minister Narendra Modi spoke with President Trump was in June 2025. While the Indian leader was in Canada for the G7 summit, he had a 35-minute telephonic conversation with the American president. Putin is expected to visit India later this year for the annual bilateral summit. India has had issues with the imbalance in trade ties with the country. India's merchandise exports to Russia stood at $4.88 billion at the end of 2024-2025. However, its merchandise imports from Moscow were at around $63 billion during the same period, highlighting a $59 billion deficit. Russia has pitched its market now as welcoming of Indian goods, as the American tariffs of 50% are set to kick in at the end of this month. The US is India's largest export market, with merchandise exports touching $86 billion in the last financial year. In recent weeks, India has engaged diplomatically with both Russia and China. Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi was in New Delhi from 18th to 20th August, as New Delhi and Beijing focus on a thaw in diplomatic ties. Russia welcomed Wang Yi's visit and supports the normalization of India-China ties. Moscow and Beijing in recent years have been pushing for the resumption of the Russia, India, China, or the RIC trilateral format of talks, which have been suspended since around the COVID-19 pandemic. New Delhi has so far distanced itself from agreeing to any specific date for the RIC format. Russia and China have become close partners, especially since Moscow's war with Ukraine began in February 2022.